What's up guys, Readiness Reviews here with you again, and I think it's about time we do another video discussing the current military surplus collecting market here in the United States. As we all know, the market is super inflated. Prices are absolutely insane and availability is extremely low. It's been that way for the past couple years now. And in those past couple years, I've started to lose hope in the possibility of scoring good Milsurp deals at gun shows. But this past weekend, I attended a gun show and actually had a very positive experience. And I wanted to share that experience with you guys. Before we get into the meat of things, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you like seeing these military surplus firearms videos on YouTube, and to subscribe to the channel to catch all my future videos. Also, if you know someone else that's into this kind of subject matter, please be sure to share the video with them because that's the best way to help me grow the channel. Now, as I was saying, gun shows have been very grim as of late. I've almost made it to the point to where it's not worth it to me to go to the show and pay the price to get in, which is as high as $15 these days, because the odds of running across something that I would actually be interested in picking up is so minuscule. I was very happily surprised at this past gun show, though, with the sheer number of surplus firearms on display. Now, prices are sort of a different story. Of course, things are super elevated at the moment. Some tables at the gun show had absolutely ridiculous prices. We're talking $900 for not super special Finn Mosins, just ridiculously priced Spanish Mausers, Swedish Mausers. It's good that those things are available, but the prices were just out of the realm of being reasonable. On the other hand, there were a couple tables that had very reasonable prices in today's market, one of which I picked up this firearm from. This is a M38 Carcano. As you guys know, I have a pretty decent little Carcano collection. I'm attempting to acquire all the major variants of Carcanos if I can, and that list is slowly dwindling down. And M38 is something that I already had in the collection, and I'm sure you guys saw my video from the Royal Tiger Imports M38 that I unboxed. I'll link that video right up here if you want to check that out. That Carcano was in absolutely terrible condition, but is actually a very rare variant with the early full-length handguard. That rifle was also chambered in 7.35. I had yet to add an M38 chambered in 6.5 Carcano to the collection, and I've literally been looking for one for a reasonable price with a decent bore for more than 2 years. And finally, I ran across one at this gun show, and of course, as you can see, it came home with me. I wasn't about to let this one go. It's in quite nice condition. The wood looks good, the bluing looks good, the bore is nice and shiny. Hopefully it'll be a good shooter. It was produced in 1940, which is pretty early on for a 6.5 chambered M38, and I've really been needing this rifle in order for me to do a review video on the M38 as a whole. The M38 Carcano chambered in 6.5 is, of course, the infamous JFK Carcano. This is the rifle minus the scope, and I'm very pleased to have finally added one to the collection. The gentleman that I purchased this from had the absolute best prices at the gun show for Milsurps. Everything he had was priced at or just below market value, and he was also willing to negotiate price. The sticker price on this Carcano was $345, and at that price, I already knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going home with it. I was willing to shell out $345 in an instant, because in reality, the prices online for M38s in decent shape is nearing $500 these days. So it was already a purchase that I had my mind set on. Of course, I always try to get the best price I can, and I really suggest you guys do the same. Gun show prices especially are meant to be haggled. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least try to get the price reduced some, and the worst thing that can happen is the vendor say no. So I started real low ball. I was like, will you take $300 for it? He was like, absolutely not. For that price, I'll keep it. And he came back with, what about $330? And so that was $15 off. I said, what about $325? Of course, I know this rifle's already price very reasonable, and I wasn't really trying to stick it to him and hardball him. He was being very fair in the first place, and he's like, I think $330 is a pretty fair price for it. And I caved and told him, okay, I concur. I can go with $330. Let's do it. In the process of buying this rifle, though, I was also side-eyeing another rifle, which is this 1891 Argentine Mauser. He had a very enticing price on this rifle of $225. I was so tempted to buy this one as well, The only reason that I wasn't really planning on it is because I already have an 1891 in the collection, and I didn't really see any reason to pick up another at the moment. But for that price, I was super tempted just for investment reasons, if nothing else. He had this tag on it, which says that it is all matching serial numbers except for the bolt, and that it has a shiny bore. And that was basically enough for me to go ahead and decide, yeah, I think I'm going to take that rifle home as well. Now, as I said, he had 225 on it. He said right away, if you want that one as well, I'll give you two for 2 bills. And I thought to myself, that's a heck of a deal. And I decided to come back with one last counter offer, which was, would you take $525 for the 2? And he thought for half a second and said, let's do it. So I ended up picking up this rifle for $200, and I picked up my M38 Carcano for $325, which is the price I wanted to pay for it in the first place anyway. Even in today's market, in 2022, here we are right on the cusp of summer. Surplus firearm deals are still out there. They are still within the realm of possibility. You just have to be patient. You have to be willing to negotiate, and you really have to get out there and hunt them down, because they're not just going to fall into your lap. They're not going to be available in large numbers online. You got to get out there on the collector market, and you got to go find them if you want these things for good prices. I'm actually pretty blown away at this 1891 Argentine Mauser coming in at a $200 price point. I truly thought that we were well past the day of $200 Milsurps, but this goes to show you that you can get lucky every now and then as long as you're diligent. Some of you might have already noticed that this 1891 Mauser is a little different from the normal fare. That is evident in the shiny chroming on these barrel bands. It's very worn away, but on the magazine, on all the screws, the trigger, the sling loop. Now you might right offhand think, well, that's a bubba. Someone did that themselves. They decided they wanted a shiny rifle and they chromed it. That's not the case with these Argentine rifles. That actually has some military provenance. Now, Ian over at Forgotten Weapons actually did a video on a rifle very similar to this in his Adventures in Surplus series. I recommend checking that video out. He speculated that these rifles were perhaps military parade rifles, and so they had the shiny chromed accents to give them a bit of a fancier look for parade use. But unfortunately, there's no hard evidence that that's what these rifles are. That's purely speculation. I do believe that that is probably the case. That is the correct assessment of where the chroming on this rifle came from. But the person that I bought it from, Stegen Historical Consulting out of Pine Mountain, Georgia, who is a military historian himself, told me that that is in fact not chrome plating, it's nickel plating. And that's one of the reasons that it's so worn off, and that was done specifically for naval use. That nickel plating was supposed to help protect those parts from corrosion due to salt water, where that also makes sense why they would do that. There's still no hard resources saying for sure that that is in fact the case. At the time, I wish I would have asked him for his resources, because I would really like to know myself. Maybe one of you guys know the answer to that question. Are these ex-parade rifles, or are they ex-naval rifles? If you do know, drop it down in the comments. I am actively planning an 1891 Argentine Mauser review for the channel. I'm lucky I picked this up for an additional example to display in that review, and hopefully we'll have the answer to that question, whether these rifles were parade rifles or naval rifles, by the time we get around to that video being released. Either way, I'm super happy I picked this rifle up for $200, and the bore is in fact nice and shiny, and I expect it to be quite a good shooter. I just wish 7.65 Argentine ammo wasn't so hard to come by. The only factory loading that I'm aware of at the moment is PPU, and I haven't seen any of that for quite a while. So that was a pretty successful gun show haul. 2 Milsurp rifles, $525. One of which I really needed for the collection, and the other one was just a really cool addition. So I guess the moral of this story is, don't be afraid to go out to the gun shows and look. The worst thing that can happen is you don't find anything, and who knows? You might get lucky and find exactly what you've been looking for. Now, at this gun show, I also had the pleasure of running into an awesome viewer of the channel. I always love running into you guys in person so we can chat for a minute, and I can get to know some of the people that actually take their time to watch my videos. This guy went above and beyond being just a viewer though, and he actually brought some items to the gun show to give to me specifically if he ran into me. And these are a couple of those items right here. He actually brought me 2 M405 dummy rockets, which have most certainly been used. This one has a nice dent in it. If I'm not mistaken, the M405 is the practice round for the Korean War era super bazooka. This M405 is dated 1953, so that would make sense And he was also super generous in giving me this freaking awesome 105mm howitzer round. This thing weighs like 40 pounds and is literally one of the coolest Milsurp pieces I have in my entire display at this point. That's why he said he wanted to give me this stuff. He thought it would look cool in the background of the videos. Looking cool in the background is a little bit of an understatement. I think these look freaking awesome in the background, and I greatly appreciate his effort in bringing these to me at the gun show, and I will proudly display them in my videos here on out. If you're a viewer of the channel and you do happen to run into me out in the wild, don't be afraid to say hello. Of course, I don't expect any gifts, especially gifts of this magnitude. This viewer just so happened to be super generous, and I just want to say a big thank you to him for those awesome gifts. Well guys, I think I've let this video drag on quite long enough at this point. I just wanted to hit home the idea that although Milsurp collecting is most certainly a dying hobby, it's not quite dead yet, and there are deals out there if you take the time to go find them and maybe get just a little lucky. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for all future Milsurp firearm content. Let me know what you thought about the video down in the comments. Have you had any lucky Milsurp finds yourself this year? If so, let me know about them, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See you then. Peace.